I remember the first time I saw Mike Tyson step into the ring. The lights were bright, the crowd was loud, and there was something electric in the air. He looked calm, but I could feel the storm inside him. You probably know that look, the one people get when they fought 1,000 silent battles before the real one even begins. This story, my friend, is not only about boxing. It's about pain, focus, and control. It's about how someone can rise from chaos and still find a way to stand tall. And yes, along the way, we'll learn a little English too. Tyson's life teaches us simple but powerful words: change, habit, focus, action, control. Each of them means something deep, not only in sport, but in life. You can learn from this too. We all face moments like this. Let's start where it all began, in Brooklyn, New York. The air there was heavy with noise, cars, shouts, music from open windows. Mike was a small boy in a big, rough world. His father left early. His mother tried her best, but life was hard. People around him were not gentle. The streets became his first school, and pain his first teacher. He was often scared, lonely, and angry. He didn't have toys or peace, but he had something else: survival. In those early days, survive became his main word. New word: survive. To stay alive or keep going when life is hard. Example: even when everything goes wrong, you can still survive. He learned that lesson early. One day, when he was still very young, he found himself in trouble with the law. He was lost, out of control. But that's when fate, or maybe luck, stepped in. At a reform school, a man named Bobby Stewart saw something in him. Not just anger, not just fear, power, energy, potential. New word: potential. What you can become in the future, your hidden ability. Example: a small seed has the potential to become a big tree. Stewart began to teach him boxing. For the first time, Mike felt something new: discipline. New word: discipline. Doing what you must, even when you don't want to. Example: discipline is stronger than motivation. Each morning, he trained. He ran, punched, sweated, failed, and tried again. For a boy who grew up fighting to survive, boxing gave his chaos a direction. Stewart saw how serious he was and took him to someone even greater: the legendary trainer, Cus D'Amato. Cus was old, calm, and wise. His eyes saw beyond the fists and the fear. He saw a broken boy who could become the youngest world champion if he learned one thing: control. New word: control. To guide or manage something so it doesn't go wild. Example: you can't control the storm, but you can control your reaction. Cus told him, you can't just fight your opponent. You must fight your own emotions. Mike listened. Slowly, he began to understand. For the first time, someone believed in him. And when someone believes in you, you start believing in yourself. Cus became more than a coach. He became a father figure. He taught Mike not just to throw punches, but to think. The mind, Cuss said, is your strongest muscle. New word, muscle. Part of your body that helps you move and stay strong. Example, you train your muscles in the gym, but your mind in life. Every day, they trained in Catskill, a quiet town far from the chaos of Brooklyn. Mike ran through the fog, his breath turning to steam in the cold morning air. Inside the gym, the smell of leather gloves and sweat filled the room. Cuss watched him like a sculptor watches his statue take shape.
Step by step, the wild boy became an athlete. The street kid became a student of boxing. New word, athlete. A person who trains and competes in sports. Example, an athlete knows that pain is part of growth. He learned to move fast, think fast, and hit fast. But more than that, he learned patience. He learned to wait, to breathe, to hold his fire. Cuss told him, fear is your best friend or your worst enemy. New word, enemy. Someone or something that wants to hurt you. Example, sometimes your own doubt is your biggest enemy. Those words stayed with Mike for life. When Cuss died, something in Mike broke. The man who gave him direction was gone. Fame came fast after that. Titles, money, cameras. He became the youngest heavyweight champion in history, only 20 years old and already a legend. But fame is a strange friend. It gives, then it takes. New word, fame. When many people know you. Example, fame can shine like gold, but it can also burn. Mike had everything, power, respect, success. But without Cuss, he lost his anchor. And when a person loses their anchor, they drift. New word, anchor. Something that keeps you steady, that holds you in place. Example, your values are your anchor in a fast-changing world. He began to live fast, too fast. People around him changed. Some wanted to help, others wanted to use him. The media followed every move, and the crowd's love began to turn into curiosity and sometimes hate. I remember watching those years. He looked strong, but behind his eyes, I could see the same boy from Brooklyn, scared, alone, trying to survive again. When you rise too quickly, you don't always see the edge until you fall. And he did fall, not once, but many times. That's what makes his story powerful. Not the victories, but the returns. Each time he lost control, he tried to find it again. There were fights that ended in disappointment, nights filled with noise and confusion. But there were also moments of honesty, when you could see the man behind the myth, the fighter who just wanted peace. And maybe you've been there too. That space between what people think you are and who you really are. Mike was searching for himself, for meaning, for peace. And peace, my friend, is not easy for a fighter. New word, peace. A calm and quiet state of mind. Example, peace comes when you stop fighting with yourself. He started to understand that real strength is not about how hard you hit, but how well you can stay calm under pressure. New word, pressure, stress or force that pushes you to act. Example, pressure can break you or it can make you stronger. I remember watching him in those later years. He smiled more. He spoke slower. The fire was still there, but softer now, warmer. He once said, "Discipline is doing what you hate to do, but doing it like you love it." That line still gives me chills. That's when I realized something. Tyson's story isn't just about boxing. It's about us, about how we deal with our pain.
Pain can destroy you, or it can teach you. It depends on what you do with it. When Mike began to control his pain, his life began to change. He started focusing on his family, his business, his peace. The man who once lived in chaos learned to breathe again. New word, focus. To give all your attention to one thing. Example, when you focus on the right things, your life changes. That word, focus, is the secret. He learned to focus not on the past, but on what he could do next. That's what transformation is. New word, transformation. A big change in shape, character, or life. Example, a caterpillar's transformation into a butterfly takes time. We all go through transformations, don't we? Some happen quietly. Some happen after storms. Mike's storm was long, loud, and public. But after all of it, he found calm. There was one interview years later that touched me deeply. The journalist asked, "Do you miss the old days?" And Tyson said quietly, "No, that person was out of control. I like who I am now." That line, "I like who I am now," it stayed with me. Because that's the dream, isn't it? To look in the mirror and finally like the person staring back. He began helping others, sharing lessons from his past. He spoke about forgiveness, patience, and time. He laughed more, and not in anger, but in peace. The fighter became a philosopher. The chaos became calm. And you, my friend, can learn from that too. New word, forgiveness. Letting go of anger towards someone or yourself. Example, forgiveness is freedom. The boy who once had nothing learned to give something priceless, wisdom. But what happened next changed everything. After that moment, something inside him settled. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, like the sound of morning after a long night of rain. I remember watching an interview where Mike spoke about change. He said softly, "I used to think I was a god. Now I just try to be a good man." That honesty hit me harder than any punch ever could. Because that's the truth, isn't it? Sometimes life breaks us, not to destroy us, but to open our eyes. He had spent years fighting others, but the real fight was always inside. Anger, fear, pride, pain. Those were the opponents he couldn't knock out until he learned to stop swinging and start listening. That's when the real control began. He started learning about humility, about respect, about listening before speaking. He began to train his mind the same way he once trained his body. He read books, met thinkers, talked to people who helped him look beyond the ring. The man who was once known for rage began talking about love, compassion, patience. It surprised many, but not me, because I believe pain can polish the soul if we let it. I remember one story he told about pigeons. He always loved them, even as a kid in Brooklyn. Back then, when everything was noisy and dangerous, pigeons were his calm. He said they were innocent, free. They didn't judge him. And even now, after all the fame, the fall, and the noise, he still kept pigeons. It was his way of staying grounded, connected to something pure. It's strange, isn't it? The world saw a dangerous man, but inside him lived a boy who just wanted peace and gentle wings.
When he spoke about those birds, his voice softened. "They remind me who I really am," he said. That's when I realized the world can name you many things, but only you decide which one to keep. For years, Mike had been called a monster, a legend, a champion, a failure. But at the end, he chose to be something simple, a man learning to live. And I think there's beauty in that. He once said, "If you don't have discipline, you're nothing." It wasn't about power anymore. It was about peace through practice, doing small, steady things every day that build your character. You see, the ring was never his real enemy. The ring was just a mirror. Inside it, he faced everything he had been hiding: his fears, his doubts, his childhood, his pride. And maybe that's true for us too. We all have our rings, our daily battles. Sometimes it's not about winning, it's about showing up and not running away. There's something deeply human about falling down and standing again. I remember a moment in one of his later interviews. The room was quiet. He looked older, gentler, still strong, but in a calm way. The interviewer asked, "Do you still see yourself as the same fighter?" He smiled and said, "I'm still a fighter, but now I fight for peace." That line, I'll never forget it. Because that's the shift we all need. Fighting not against people, but against our worst habits: laziness, anger, fear, self-doubt. He used to fight with his fists. Now he fought with patience. It made me think about the word change. We use it a lot, but few truly live it. Change isn't loud, it's not fireworks, it's small choices repeated quietly. It's the decision to wake up early, to say sorry, to forgive, to start again. Tyson's life became a lesson in that kind of change. He had known chaos, and now he chose calm. He had known control through force. Now he found control through peace. He once said,
When you think you know everything, you learn nothing. Those words show how far he had come, from arrogance to awareness, from noise to silence. Sometimes I wonder how many people laughed at him during his worst days. The tabloids, the fans who cheered when he fell. But life has a way of teaching patience. Years later, those same people began to listen differently. They heard not a fighter's roar, but a man's truth. And truth, when spoken from experience, has power. He began to share that truth in talks, in interviews, even in his podcast. His words were simple, but full of life. He said once, "We all have to suffer, but what matters is what we do with the suffering." It reminded me of an old saying, "Pain is a teacher, not a punishment." I think he finally understood that. He no longer tried to escape his pain. He turned it into wisdom. There's something poetic about that. The same energy that once caused destruction became a force for reflection. That's the moment he truly became free. You know, I used to watch him walk into the ring with that cold stare, the same look that made grown men afraid. But when I see him now, smiling, calm, I see a deeper kind of strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout. It's the strength of someone who has faced himself and survived. And that's a lesson worth remembering. Because you, my friend, might not be a boxer, but you have your battles too. Maybe they're inside you, the fight to stay positive, to keep going, to forgive, to change. Tyson's story shows that even when life throws you into chaos, you can still build control. Control is not about being perfect. It's about being aware. Awareness means knowing when you're losing yourself and choosing to stop, breathe, and begin again. He did that again and again.
He started to live differently. He grew closer to his children. He spent more time at home. He talked openly about love, loss, and learning. He admitted his mistakes, not to seek pity, but to set himself free. He once said, "I used to hate who I was. Now I understand him." That line, it still gives me chills. To understand your past self, that's real maturity. He began to laugh more, to enjoy silence, to take long walks, to live slowly. The man who once moved like a storm now moved like a calm wind. And that, to me, is one of the greatest transformations I've ever witnessed. After all this, one truth remained. You can't change where you come from, but you can change where you're going. Mike Tyson proved that. His story teaches us that power without purpose destroys, but power with peace heals. It shows that success without self-control is chaos, but control with kindness is freedom. He once said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth." It's funny, but it's also true. Life hits all of us, sometimes hard. But what matters is not the punch, it's the response. When life hits, do you fall apart? Or do you breathe and stand again? Tyson learned to stand again, not as the Iron Mike everyone feared, but as the human Mike everyone could learn from. He began to speak about love,
about time, about gratitude. He said, "Every day I wake up, I thank God for another chance." Another chance. That's all we need sometimes. If you think about it, we all start in chaos. Childhood, mistakes, fear, loss. But those moments don't have to define us. They can refine us. You can start living today. You can stop just existing. Tyson's life shows that change is possible, even after everyone says it isn't. He used to fight to prove he was the best. Now he lives to prove he can be at peace. And isn't that what we all want? To find calm in our chaos, to use our pain as fuel for growth, to learn, to forgive, to move forward. Tyson's story tells us pain channeled is not pain wasted. Every punch, every fall, every loss taught him something about himself. And maybe that's true for you too. Every challenge you face today can build the strength you'll need tomorrow. He found control not in the ring, but in the mirror. And that's where we all must begin, right there, with ourselves. After all this, one truth remained. Control starts within. You can have the whole world, but if you don't have peace inside, it means nothing. You can win 1,000 battles, but if you lose yourself, you lose everything. But if you learn to forgive, to focus, to breathe, to love, then even a single day becomes a victory. That's what Mike Tyson learned. That's what we can learn too. Your story is just beginning. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe. The next story will surprise you. And tell me, my friend, which fighter, thinker, or dreamer's story should we explore next? Leave your ideas in the comments. Until then, keep your heart strong, your mind calm, and your focus clear. We're all in this fight together, the fight to become our best selves. Thank you for watching, for listening, for feeling. I'll see you in the next story.